welcome to another Sister A video. This one is week 7, laying out the home page. So we've come to the end of our dry ore home page. We have all the items on it. We have our color added. We have our images sized. We have our headlines, our paragraphs. Now it's time to make them behave where they are supposed to be. So over here on the instruction page, it has some very important things that would be helpful for you to look at before you get started. So if you haven't done that, please do. There may be some subtle differences, but you want to make sure that your items are named with these names in mind. Now, the one difference that I have from the instructions is in section 3, it has a section that it calls with a class of home paragraph 3, and instead you should have the home paragraph 3 should be in the paragraph, and the class of home headline 3 should be here. So if you didn't do that, please do. It works much better than having a section. Make sure your banner is not in the header. It needs to be down here, the very first thing in the main section. It's showing that here in this code as well. The one thing that they didn't do that I think makes it work much better is if you have a class of banner here, which most of you do, says visualize the grid. Well, you can visualize the columns. The better one is clicking on this second one, layout with grid lines. That gives you this image. Shows you how many columns and rows we're working with. So now you're going to define the grid. All right, remember when we did our positioning activity, you had to have a parent and a child. We're also going to need to do the home grid over here. That's the parent. So I'm just going to copy that from my instructions, and please don't put it up here. Put it down after your social media and your footer section items. All of these are going to go down here. So the very first thing you have to do, if you remember from the other, was to have a display of grid. The next thing it tells you is you're going to have to add a grid template columns inside of your home grid rule set. So I'm going to copy this piece and put it over there as well. Inside here. You're going to have to go a rule of, as it shows you here, 1 FR for how many equal portions you're going to have. And you can either go 1 FR, 1 FR, 1 FR, and so on and so on and so on. Or, well, if you go up here and you look, 1 FR, 1 FR, 1 FR, 1 FR, 1 FR. That's 5 times. So instead, we're going to repeat it. We're going to repeat 5 times, comma, 1 FR. It's so much easier than writing it all those times. You can do it either way. And the last thing we're going to add is some grid gap. and we're going to go 1 EM. And so next it's saying place the items. Well, that means you're going to go over here to your index page and you're going to place these items. Home headline 1, home paragraph 1. The images are already placed. We're going to add to those, but we're going to place the items that aren't already on there according to where they fall on this grid. The first one is the home headline 1. And it's telling you it's going to have a grid column of 1 to 4 and a grid row of 1 to 2. And I'll show you what that means. It's saying a grid span of 1 to 4. 1, 2, 4 for the headline, and a row of 1 to 2. The next thing it's going to have you do is the paragraph. Don't forget to put your dot. The paragraph is spanning from 1 to 4 column and from 2 to 4 rows. So I'm going to copy this and just change where it's at. 1 to 4, and it's going to go from rows 2 to 4. So for that first image, it's going to span from rows 4, 5, and 6, 4 to 6, and rows 1 to 4. Okay, so I'm going to borrow a couple of these, take it up to my image, and I'm going to have it grid columns 4 to 6, 4 to 6, and the rows 1 to 4. My headline is on 1. This is going 1 to 4. So to help control my image, I am going to give it some margin. And I'm also going to add a little bit of justified content. Center. And align items. Center. So I'm going to come back down here to my paragraph. The headline's okay, but I'm going to give it some padding so that it's not right up against the edge. Okay, so now if you notice, things are kind of coming into line. However, this image doesn't want to stay in its box because it's trying to be bigger than the box's size. To fix that, we're going to come over here, excuse me, to our image section, and this is we're going to go image, IMG stands for image, and we're going to tell it that the max width of any image is going to be 100% to keep that from happening. So when we come back over and we look at it, now it fits. The first section looks like it's fitting right. Now it's time to work on the second and third sections. Notice how they try to fill up wherever they can. So I'm just going to copy these two, put them down below here. Change both of those to a 2. Now they're not going to work right until I put their different parts of the grid in. So number 2, it's going to be grid column 3 to 6. And this is going to also be 3 to 6. So I can fix that so we won't get all mixed up. It's going to only take up row 4. And this one is going to be, paragraph is going to be 5 to 7. That chart is really what you need to look at while you're making this. The left image, and that's going to be from row or column 1 to 3 and rows 4 to 6. Actually, I'm just going to borrow this whole thing because I'll end up using the whole thing. All right, so it's going to be columns 1 to 3 and rows 4 to 7. Let's see how we look. You might have to refresh, but it's looking pretty good, except we have a little bit of an issue only on the left side. We need to swap these two. Make this a 0 and this one the 25 pixels. Those look pretty good. I might give it just a hair more on the top, but those look pretty perfect. All right, and that brings us down to our last section, the section 3. Notice this one goes the whole way across, so that makes it easy for both of those. Do home headline 3 and home paragraph 3, and I'm going to borrow. Change these to 3s. And these are going to be a grid column of all the way across, which is 1 to 6. And it's going to be, so I'm going to put this one on 7 and this one on 8. This one also needs text-align center. For that section. Don't have to do it to the headline because headlines are already centered. All right, so that worked out for the entire page. And now we need to work on the upper portion and the footer. Now we're going to work on this navigation and logo area. The parent is going to be the header element, and then the items inside the header, this is the header, this whole area, are going to be the children. So let's begin. So you're going to make a grid display for your header. I'm going to put it in front of the home grid that we made a little earlier. Do not need to put a dot here. We are going to put a display grid, so I'm going to copy the inside parts of this. Now they're saying 110. Let me explain. Yours may be different. Mine's a little different. Depends on your logo. Look and see how big you made your logo. My logo is about 125 pixels. I'm going to make it a little bigger. I'm going to say 150. And you look at the sizes of your page names. The logo is my biggest item. So I want this first thing to be 150 pixels because it needs to be at least as big as the biggest item. And then you're going to put a space and the word auto. That means it's going to adjust itself automatically. And then one other thing we're going to do is we're going to align the items center. I don't want this color behind my logo that's different than this. I want it to blend in. So I'm going to put that same dark color that's in my logo background inside that, my header. There, now it's, only thing is my logo is that color there. Now we're going to adjust the rest of my navigation. NavUL should already be there, and if you don't have it, please add it. And it should already have list style, none. That removes the little bullets. We're going to add a display grid to your navigation also. That makes these go along this way, in block form. We didn't write the word block, we just did it this way. We repeated for an auto fit, minimum, maximum, 6 EM for each one of them. That's the template columns. So basically these are columns. It's its own grid. So it doesn't matter how many items I have in my grid, it's going to make them automatically fit. The auto fit's very important for this. So it shows you how it broke it down mathematically and why 6 EM worked. So to finish up the navigation, most of the items are there, and we're going to make a margin of 0 in the NavUL. And that finishes off the NavUL. The NavLI only should have your font family and your font size. The NavA should have the color of your text, the line height, and your text decoration, which turns off the underline. We're going to add one more thing to that. And that's going to be a padding of 1 EM, 1 EM. Now you might adjust these slightly, but what these do is it makes it so that the little hand appears where you can click, appears more than just on the letters themselves. It appears above them, and below them, and to the left and right a certain amount. Just so you don't have to exactly be in the middle to click. That takes care of the navigation. The one thing we don't have is we want a hover effect, and that's going to be by adding nav a colon hover. I go nav a colon hover. And we're just going to add something simple, like I'm going to give it a background color. I'm going to do like this light blue here. Okay, so when I now hover over it, I get that, but I can't read the text. So I'm going to make the text this darker color that it is right here. That's going to be just plain color, so I'm going to grab this right here. I'm going to make it look like a button Now see how tall that is? I don't like it quite that tall. And the height is on that first one right here. So I'm going to make that 0.5. That's better. This logo to stay in a relative position. As we move things around, we don't want it to go anywhere. And now I think I've got it the way I like it. Let's move down here and complete our footer. So the directions say, figure it out. You know, using these things that you've used before. So the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to show you what I already had figured out, things that I want to work right. I'm going to make my footer the dark color like I have this. That gives me kind of a balanced effect. And so I'm going to make it that dark color. I'm going to come down here by where I made my header, and I'm going to make a footer. And I'm going to make it the same as the nav was. All right, and I'm going to tell it to display grid. It's going to be its own little mini grid thing. And I'm going to make a template column. A line item center. And I'm even going to add a little bit of line height. I'll bring this back from a place where I already had it written. Repeating it 3 times because we have 3 social media things. It's 1FR max content, and then we're going to repeat it because we want it to be the same as we did up there in the logo. And line height items. Now notice what that did. That took my info line, and I had it the same color as back here, so that way, because I knew I was going to add this dark color. Home page is laid out. These work. They look good. I like the way it looks. I might add a little bit of a box shadow to this and maybe round off my corners, but that's about it. I hope this video is helpful to you in your layout of your page. You might make some slight adjustments, but you must lay the page out using grid and with the left and right as was shown in this video. Your other 2 pages, you're going to be able to do more of how you would like them to be. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoy the week. Happy coding!